Hey PC gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer Chat Log. I am Lauren Martin.
And hey everyone, I'm Mollie Taylor.
And this week Mollie and I are bringing on senior editor Robin Valentine to talk about gaming trends from this year into next year. Things that we have noticed starting that we'd either like to continue or like to stop, trends to end, or things to continue into 2024. All sorts of different things, lots of topics. But before we get to that, Mollie, what did you do last week?
So I don't think I had the time to talk about this last week, but I think I spoke about it in the week before's episode, in that I was going to France to participate in a Tekken 7 tournament. I went and I did that, my first international tournament. It went okay. It went okay. I have not actually played Tekken 7 for a few months at this point. I'm very much in that Tekken 8 waiting room. Ever since I got my hands on Tekken 8, I have had no desire to go back to Tekken 7. So going to this tournament, it was very much just like, if I go 0-2, I go 0-2. I didn't. I went 2-2, which is my second
That's
major.
Pretty good,
yeah, thank you. My second major, my second 2-2. Which for someone who has not played the game for 2 months, pretty okay. But I won my second game and was told that I was going on stage, which happened to me at my last major as well. My last major in August, I went against a very, very good player, a really good Scottish player called Dusty. He's a very, very good player, very kind player as well. And then this time I had to play against the 16th best player in the world right now.
How did that happen?
I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. Of the currently 19 players who are in the Tekken World Tour finals for this year, he is number 16 in terms of points. So that was like really fun for me.
So you won that match, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Across all 6 rounds, I think I got like 4 or 5 hits in on him. He's a very good player. He also plays Ganryu, which is a character I've never fought before. So I was very embarrassed. I was very like uncomfy on that stage. I don't know why this keeps happening to me, but it has made me determined. When Tekken 8 comes out, training arc begins. I am determined to get good at that game and to never eat shit that badly ever again for as long as I live. I was recognized by someone else in the days following at like a different thing that I was at. Somebody recognized me maybe like 3 or 4 days after that happened, and I've never wanted to crawl inside myself like so badly in my life. But so yeah, I haven't played much outside of being at that tournament. I'm still on the Nikkei grind. That mobile game is like keeping me. I say mobile game, I play a lot of it on PC actually, but it's keeping me going. It's like a reverse Honkai for me, right? Honkai was a PC game, I played a lot on mobile. Nikkei is a mobile game, I'm playing a lot on PC. But yeah, so that's
2024 trends. Mollie on the Tekken Pro circuit. That's what we're doing in 2024.
You guys watch, okay? I am determined to do well in Tekken 8 in 2024. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna be training hard. I don't expect to do amazing, but I wanna do good. I'm gonna be competing. Maybe if there are any other fighting game fans in the UK listening to this podcast right now, maybe I will see you at some events in the future. And if I ever do, please come and say hello. That'd be really cool as well. So yeah, that is 2024 trend Mollie edition. How about you, Lauren? What did you get up to?
As we know, 2024 trend for Lauren is continuing the cozy game grind, which is what I did last week as well. I played the demo for something that appeared in our PC Gamer Most Wanted show.
Mm.
It was Echoes of the Plum Grove, which I was not super aware of, but it's got this Paper Mario aesthetic where it's that like 3D
Ooh.
world, but paper characters, and like some of the like environment is like flat as well. Super cute. It's very like cartoonified North American colonies. So you know the cute sanitized version of all of that of you
Mm.
arriving on a little shipwreck, and but it's a very cute game. I actually I don't always get on with the 3D versions of farm sims and things. I tend to like them to be pixel or like just 2D generally. But I did just kind of like right off the bat enjoy that demo. I only got to play a little bit of it, but the first impression was good. And then also I've been playing Snacko, which I've been following for a while. And as long as nothing goes wrong between now and like a couple days from now, it should have launched as you're listening to this yesterday. Surprise launched. There was no release
Oh.
date for it. So I've been playing some of that. That is the cute farm sim that is cats. And it's also
Yes.
sort of like this flat, pixelated on a 3D world type situation. It's like low poly 3D world, um, pixelated 2D characters, but it's
Hmm.
super cute. Also makes a very good impression. I had a little bit of crashing issues as I was playing the demo, but that's something that I expect to get solved as that actually launches. I saw like a Steam update come through it for it this morning, and I haven't played it since then, so perhaps that has changed overnight. But like super super cute. You're like helping bring spirits back to an island that you
Oh.
washed up on that I think has been abandoned. So like you start out with not a lot of townspeople, and you like recruit them to come in. Like you need to recruit somebody to come be your carpenter and the grocery store owner and all of that stuff. But yeah, both of those so far, one of them you should be able to play now as you're hearing this, and one of them is going to be coming later. But both good this week. So that is what I got up to. And with that all done, then, Molly, we will go grab Robin and talk about the wider trends, not just you and me, but the rest of gaming headed into 2024. Hey, Robin, thank you for joining us back on the podcast again. We brought you in this time because we like sort of stole an idea you had for something you wanted to write at the end of this year on the website. And it was about gaming trends, right? Things for next year that you want to see stopping and starting, right? That was the original pitch.
Yeah, I made that pitch before I thought about what any of the trends are. So I'm 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 like reversing this on you, where I'm going to use this as my brainstorming session to actually get some ideas for the article. Um, but yeah, just thinking about, I feel like every year there's always like big trends that um, that become like very noticeable and kind of defining of that year, and it's nice to look back and think which ones will be like to go away and which ones will be like to see stick around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you've definitely compiled quite a few things for us. I think Molly and I chipped in a couple as well. Do you have any particular one place you want to start, or is it going to be start with the good things or start with the bad news? I would do either.
Yeah, what's your
Um,
favorite gaming trend of the year been, Robin? What's like the one that you've been like a big fan of?
well, I think the one that really stands out to me is I love chaos. So I love that this has been the year when, like, at the start of the year we were looking at what was coming out this year and we were like right, everyone by the end of this year everyone's going to be talking about Starfield, everyone's going to be talking about like Diablo 4. There were these like big surefire hits that we were all, I mean, we've, as a website, we've been building to Starfield and Diablo 4, for years at this point. Um, and then we get to the end of this year, and the game that's on everyone's minds is like Baldur's Gate 3. Like, this has been the year of like wild cards coming in and just like surprise hits, and then those big games that we thought were going to be dominating the conversation actually been a bit lukewarm, like a bit limp. I think particularly Starfield, like was I think people expected that to be like, a really defining release, and actually it really feels like people have already lost interest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, you have Baldur's Gate 3, which I think is what I think is probably the biggest surprise hit that I've ever seen while I've been in this industry, in terms of like how big of a hit it's been, how much it's dominated the conversation versus like, I mean, if anyone was predicting an old school isometric RPG based like strictly on D&D rules to be like the big defining game of 2023, like no one saw that coming. And then you've got stuff like Dave the Diver was huge this year, and like it's a game about playing a sort of chubby middle-aged man who dives for fish. Like no one saw that coming either. Yeah, and even like I found the success of Alan Wake 2 surprising, not because I didn't think it was going to be a good game, but because I felt like it really kind of broke through in a way that like the first Alan Wake didn't. And yeah, it's kind of the year of upsets. I mean, Redfall I keep thinking about as well. Like an Arcane game came out this year that we
forgot about Redfall.
That's the thing. I feel like everyone's forgotten Redfall came out, but an Arcane game came out this year, and it was like a huge disappointment. That's kind of wild to think about. Like, I don't think has Arcane ever really like disappointed us in that way before. So this felt like the year where like no one could predict anything. Up is down, good is bad, like, and we're getting to the end of the year and talking about Game of the Year, and everything's up in the air. You know, everything's out the window from what we expected it would be. And I don't know if that's like a good trend, but it's nice for things to be less predictable and for the unexpected to I'd rather talk about things I wasn't expecting than things that we've been expecting for years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does keep things exciting.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I think this year has been a very good lesson that you just can't kind of rest on your laurels a little bit, and you can't just look at a game and a developer and be like, oh, well, it's going to be amazing because it's Bethesda, and Bethesda always do amazing things, or because it's Arcane and Arcane's games are always really good. And it's like we like you said, Robin, we've seen this year that isn't always necessarily the case. The games that we consider like safe big hitters were not safe, or maybe they were too safe, and that's why they've not like done as well. I don't know, but I've really enjoyed it this year. I've really enjoyed seeing games that we weren't even talking about at the beginning of the year end up doing really well. And you know, we had expected Baldur's Gate 3 to be good, right? We had expected it to be good. I don't think we had expected it to be big.
Yes. I think that's accurate.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah, and like looking towards next year then, like if this was the trend this year and now we're looking towards next year, we do not have the same release calendar. Like this time last year, we knew that a lot of these things were coming this year. Like we knew this was the year of Starfield, among other things. Looking towards like a more open release calendar, at least at this particular moment. Like we've gotten some big announcements. Like now we know that like GTA 6 is coming in 2025. Like I think we just found out about like Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which is like important to me still. They're going to do a full reveal next summer 2024. So like, is that coming before the end of 2024? Big if. I don't know if I'm going to like, you know, bet on that. Like another 2025, lots of 2025 stuff. So with 2024 still looking kind of like open, do you think we're going to continue getting like small surprises next year then? Like things that are not like sudden big drops, I guess.
I think so. I hope so.
I hope so.
I don't know how you feel, Robin. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is easy to say, but I think there's a lot that's going to happen in 2025 that we have no inkling of yet, right? Like,
sure. Yeah.
I mean, there was the other thing this year this was kind of the year of like where it felt like the floodgates opened a little bit. We've had like a very quiet few years post-pandemic, and then like suddenly big games are dropping again. And I wonder if there's anything kind of waiting in the wings that is going to be kind of announced and then dropped in a relatively short turnaround. But I think you can already see some like potential wild cards. Like I feel like the stage is set for the new Dragon's Dogma to like.
Yeah,
like, I was gonna say this.
Yeah, and like I got to play a little bit of that earlier this year, and like. Game's good. I mean, I'm a big Dragon's Dogma guy anyway, but like the game's good. It's really good, and it's like really impressive. I think there's been so much good critical reappraisal of Dragon's Dogma since it came out, and a lot of people have kind of gone back to that game and kind of rediscovered what a good game it was. But particularly this new one is like it feels like a really grand scale kind of fantasy open world in a way that I think people are kind of hungry for, but still with loads of the like weirdness of Dragon's Dogma. Like in my hands-on, I just picked up a pig at one point and just like carried it down the road with me while it was like squealing and wriggling around. And like you just can. There's just a wonderful kind of tactility to that world. Anyway, I could talk about Dragon's Dogma for ages, but yeah, I think you can kind of already see some kind of slightly more idiosyncratic stuff that could be the big deal of 2024, especially with things like lots of things getting kind of delayed out of the way. And I think you can already see a couple of big games that are probably not going to hit, right? Like Suicide Squad is next year, I think. And I think the writing's already on the wall for that game.
So I've got like a bad trend, something that's been happening this year that I don't love, that I want to see stop for next year, and I think it's too late. I think it's going to have to stop naturally. But large games that we've seen launching, having it's about the nomenclature of that 3-4 days that pre-order players get to play a game before everybody else. And you know what they're calling it, you know what publishers are calling it, is early access. And excuse me, we already are using those words for something completely different. We already decided early access, capital E, capital A, sometimes lowercase e, lowercase a if it's not on Steam specifically. Early access is a whole other concept, as we know, for the period in which a game is still in like beta development and you can buy it and, contribute to testing. That is not the 4 days that you got to play Call of Duty before the official launch date. That's not what that is supposed to be called. Can we please not call it that?
This is perhaps the thing that has irritated me the most this year. This is the one thing that I want to see die more than anything, right? So like Diablo 4 did it, Starfield did it, Mortal Kombat 1 did it, like you said, I think Call of Duty did it. What was the other game? There was another game that did it as well. I forget. There have been like multiple games that have done this year, and it's almost always predicated on you buying the more expensive.
Oh yeah, it's a premium edition thing.
Yeah,
yep.
It's like buy the premium edition and play the game like the weekend before release. I really hate it. It feels like on the verge of being kind of predatory, almost. I really do not enjoy it. It's like, pay us an extra $30 and play the game 3 days before everyone else. Just release the game 3 days early. Why put a release date in place if you're just going to make it playable a few days early for people that are like willing to cough up extra money just for the privilege? I really
as far as premium edition awards go, that's not a great one. I don't like that that's a thing that even exists, and I also especially hate that we're calling it something that's not its name. That's not what it's called. We already are using those words. You can't have them.
It's just inaccurate as well, right? Because basically, what you're getting at, Molly, is that if it's not early access, because if people can play the game, then the game is released and finished. What it actually is we're going to prevent people from playing it until a certain point, unless you cough up the money, which sucks. Like, because the whole concept of early access is that idea of like you can have an early access to this thing before it's finished, and as long as you're happy with that idea that like this is not the complete product, you can have that kind of early taste of it. This isn't that, and it's certainly like, I think like useful gaming terms are always considered fair game to sacrifice on like the altar of marketing, basically. And like this feels very much like before this they were running betas that weren't betas and alphas that weren't alphas. Like I don't know if they've decided that people like this idea that they're kind of almost a little bit behind the scenes, or they're like a little bit ahead of the kind of official release. But it seems to be a trend that's been going for a while, that this is just like a rubbish new incarnation of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other one of the other bad trends, Robin, that you had, I think, was around the life cycle of online games right now. Was that you?
Yeah, I feel like this has been the year that companies have decided to like cut their losses on stuff way earlier than before. I feel like there used to be this kind of unspoken agreement that if you put out a live service game, or kind of particularly kind of online multiplayer live service games, that there was kind of almost like a grace period, like you had to commit to supporting that game for a certain amount of time, and then you kind of had to keep the servers running for a little while after that to kind of justify the purchase. And
Mm-hmm.
even some of the like really high profile disasters of recent years, like something like Anthem, that there's been that kind of obligation for the companies to kind of keep it going so the people who did buy it can play it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing now is that stuff comes out and it doesn't hit straight away, and basically if something doesn't hit straight away, it's not going to hit, and they just immediately are like, right, shut the servers down, and stuff like shuts
Inside of the
down.
year.
Yeah, like within a year, stuff shutting down, and then there's stuff that hasn't even come out that is getting like shut down before it comes. Games getting cancelled is nothing new, but like
Mm-hmm.
games that are like fully playable that have had betas or alphas getting shut down before they can come out. I mean, Hyenas wasn't
Hyenas.
quite at this stage, but Hyenas is kind of an example where they clearly just saw the writing on the wall and were like, we don't think we're going to have a live service hit here, just kill it. Previously, we saw with like Amazon, they had that game. I think it was called Crucible.
Yep.
I think this was
Yeah.
last year, where they ran like a lengthy like beta for that game, and then were just like, nah, kill it. And it feels like what it always makes me think of is like it feels like you're getting a glimpse into some sort of huge argument that happened behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like someone at that studio was like, no, we can't make a live service game work. Like this is not going to hit. And someone else was like, no, you have to do it. We're going to do it. And then like once the game actually comes out, or once it's in players' hands, they have like enough fodder, enough like evidence to be like, no, look, the numbers aren't there. It isn't going to work. I win the argument. Shut it down. But it's rough when potentially interesting concepts come out and actually reach you know not a huge number of people, but enough people to actually form a little community, and
Yeah.
then they just don't feel they have that obligation anymore to sustain that. They can just pull the switch whenever they want to. It's not a good precedent.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. It sucked. We've seen a lot of live service games shut down this year. Like I'm getting 2022 and 2023 slightly like scrambled in my brain, but definitely in the last like 12 to 18 months, I feel like we've seen a lot of like games, like you said, Robin, that have been out less than a year that are kind of curtains, and it does really suck because, like you say, there are some really interesting and clever concepts that are being stuffed inside like a live service formula that would maybe like thrive a lot better if they were just these singular experiences. And that is like live service games in general is just something I want to see less of in 2024 because they're so exhausting. They are so exhausting. Like I want to be able to pick up a game, play it, be like, that was really fun, and then move on to something else, right? And I understand that that doesn't always necessarily pay the bills for these developers and for the people that have made these games, but it feels increasingly exhausting to be involved in this hobby because every game is trying to squeeze as much of your attention and your time out of you as it can physically manage. And I can't do it anymore. I'm
Yeah,
tired.
I've like sworn off live service games as a result, not
Mm-hmm.
because they can't be fun, but because I only have so much time in the day, and you realize at a certain point, if you do your dailies Weirdly, Multiverses was the game that made me realise this, because Multiverses, which is another game that has, I mean, it hasn't actually been cancelled yet, but that's a game that was basically out for a long time. That
Yeah,
they're
had a
now kind of
weird
quietly
situation.
not showing anyone anymore. But anyway,
Mhm.
but that game has like really aggressive like dailies and stuff in it that take quite a long time to complete for a game that basically is a bit of like knockabout fun and doesn't really sustain that kind of thing. And I was trying to like keep up with those dailies because I think I'd bought the season pass, or they might have given us a code for the season pass or something, but something made me want to do the dailies. And I was just realizing like I can either play like a whole spread of interesting games, or I can spend like 2 hours each day
Do my dailies in Multiverses.
trying to like win 3 matches with Rick from Rick and Morty or something. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, what am I doing here? And it actually ended up ruining the experience of what was actually a kind of light, fun fighting game. So I completely agree, and it feels like we've hit the point that like MMOs hit, where like the industry can only sustain a few big ones, and really all of these attempts to bite that pie are just futile and are just leading to kind of disappointment and lots of wasted energy for developers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. While we're in the bad stuff, then the other way that companies are, of course, cutting is we've seen a lot of layoffs this year, which isn't a trend we can ascribe to the year 2023. Really, that's just a continued trend from always. Unfortunately, it has felt kind of dire this year for some long in the works projects, cutting down workforce before they're out instead of after they're out. You know, like we're very used to seeing big games come out and then seeing, you know, great profit reports and then hearing that there have been layoffs despite that. And then I'm going to mention Dragon Age again because that's on my mind of like, that game's not out yet. Like, and they've done a lot of cuts there. Which is like, yeah, it sucks to see it in that order even more than the reverse.
It's been a bad year, I think, for industry layoffs. You know, like you said, Lauren, it's definitely not a new concept, but I feel like it's one that has definitely been a lot more prevalent, like in the overall narrative of the industry this year. We have seen, like, I've lost count at this point how many times one of us has had to write a news piece about layoffs at a developer. And like you say, like sometimes it's happening even before a game comes out, or a game is getting cancelled and everyone's getting let go. And, you know, I have friends in the industry who've been made redundant this year, who've lost their jobs, like once stuff is shipped or even before something is shipped. And it's horrible to see. Like, I think now more than ever, the industry feels so volatile right now. And it's worrying not only for the people that are making these games, but it makes me worry about, you know, is it going to be stifling creativity in the future? Is it going to be, you know, are we just going to see these really safe games getting pushed out to maximize as much profit as possible? And then if it falls short, people are just gonna be gone. And I really hate it. It's probably outside of the early access thing, in terms of a more industry-wide issue, it's something that has kind of bummed me out this year, big time.
Yeah, I would say like a trend that we can sort of ascribe this to is the amount of acquisitions that have happened and again, not purely contained in 2023, but I think we've definitely seen like a sharp increase in acquisitions and bigger companies being acquired than we were used to. I think we were very used to someone, you know, a mid-size big publisher acquiring smaller studios, and now we are seeing large publishers getting acquired by larger publishers, right, at this point. And there's a finite amount of times that can happen, of course. So yeah, it feels like the layoffs are a downstream effect of the high number of acquisitions we've seen kind of coming to a head this year and probably into next year as well, potentially.
I think you're right, Mollie, that there's there's a kind of retreating into safety element to this of like
Hmm.
I think this is going to knock on to products in a big way because it so much of what we're seeing is like companies kind of cutting away the riskier parts of the business, cutting away like the kind of things that aren't as much in their wheelhouse, or the kind of studios that they've acquired that aren't kind of core to their business yet. You know, and we saw like this isn't even as dramatic an example, but we saw recently Frontier put out a Warhammer RTS. What was it?
Yeah.
Realms of Ruin, which
Mm-hmm.
which hasn't hit for them at all, and immediately their statement, you know, was basically we're retreating back into, you know, the things that we have that are proven. We're not gonna really make RTS games anymore. We're gonna retreat back into Sims that have a proven track record and stuff. And it feels like that's so much of this, but it's particularly galling when it's like we're seeing studios release good games and then like immediately get closed and stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was that game? Is it Shadow Tactics? What's the one with the
Yep.
pirates, the ghost
Yep.
pirates?
Yeah.
You know, that's like a game we're talking about as part of like Game of the Year discussions. Like, there are people on the team who love that game. You know, I haven't played it myself, but I've heard really good things about it. That studio shuttered like as soon as the game came out. You know, and that's
Yeah. I think that was like their own extenuating circumstances, kind of, with the way that development had been for them. And what's it? Shadow Tactics is their earlier one. I forget what the newest one is called.
Shadow
But you're
Gambit?
right. Yes,
Shadow
Shadow
Gambit,
Gambit.
that's it,
That's
yeah.
the one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
great
many
games though.
But like even then they expressed how difficult the development had been, right? And at least they had the option to go out by choice, right? A lot of the developers that we've seen this year lose their jobs have not had that choice to retreat themselves, right? But I think they still spoke to just how difficult development was as a career, right? And it is difficult, and it does suck to see, you know, you have developers dedicating like hours and hours of their life, like 80 to 100 hours a week of their life to ship a game and immediately be told that they're not needed anymore. And that really fucking sucks, man. It sucks to see.
That's what it comes down to, right? It's like it's a lot of different phenomenons, but it all kind of comes down to the games industry is like has become a pretty hostile landscape that is very difficult to survive in, and particularly when big companies. So you have small companies dissolving because they can't kind of maintain in that environment, and then you have big companies taking these pretty brutal decisions in reaction to that, to kind of protect their own interests, rather than the kind of human side of the business. But yeah, I think we've done a lot of really good coverage of all the layoffs this year. So if anyone listening is like interested to know more about what's going on, I mean, I think literally if you just search PC gamer layoffs, you will find a depressing amount of articles that go into much better detail on each one. Yeah, the full picture. I don't know if people outside of kind of working for a games website, I don't know how much awareness people have of how much it's been happening this year, but it's really and in games media as well. We've seen a bunch of games media people, you know, in our specific industry get laid off as well. So the whole thing is just very unstable. I don't know if that's pandemic aftershocks or just wider, you know, problems, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will bring us around to some positive trends then for anybody who's listened this far and is feeling a little bit sad about the state of 2023 into 2024. All of these things we've talked about are very, very real and very worth lingering on. As Robin said, you can find coverage on the site. Some things that we are excited about from this year to head into next year. We have a couple things surrounding like various licenses. Like I've been excited to see the amount of like like non-gaming properties taking more stabs at game adaptations, and also we're seeing it both ways around. Robin, I'll let you cover the other one, but like we've gotten quite a few Lord of the Rings games lately, and like a couple of them haven't been good. Still waiting for one to be good. Here's hoping for the one about the Shire, whatever that one is going to be, like either next year or further out. The last couple we've seen, like Gollum and like Moria, we're not much to write home about, but it's exciting to see like those universes start to be like used more again, and see more licensed games that like have potential. I'll say, I don't know, maybe we're headed into a new horrible era of bad licensed games. Maybe this is like a monkey's paw of we're just entering like the like late 90s again, and it's like, wow, every licensed game is terrible. Yeah, we'll see, but I am glad to see like Lord of the Rings and like D&D we're seeing more of, and like the other things as well, probably. I mean, we already knew we were going to get a lot more Witcher, but now we're going to get a lot more Witcher, which was already so popular. We haven't like had a lull in Witcher games. That's just sort of been steadily increasing. But then in the other direction, Robin, you were talking about TV show and movie adaptations too, right?
Yeah, this really felt like a year for people taking adaptations to TV and film from games like seriously. I mean, this is a bit outside our wheelhouse, but the Mario movie was huge. Sonic continues to be like enormous, despite the fact that he hasn't had a good game in about 30 years at this point.
Wait, what about Sonic Mania?
Well, yeah, they had to bring in some fans to make a good one. Like, jeez. But yeah, you had like the Last of Us TV show, which felt that was a moment. I mean, I like the whole thing kind of annoyed me a bit in that it was basically taking a game that apes on Prestige TV and then making it into Prestige TV and then acting very serious about it. But it did feel like a real like that really felt like a watershed moment of like people really treating a video game TV show like a real big TV show that like normal people should be interested in, and like not
My
treating
mum
it with
watched
that.
it.
I mean, there's the stamp of approval. But not treating it with that kind of detached like aloofness of like, oh, kind of
video
snooty
game.
Yeah, like and that felt like that was building on a lot of what like Arcane did. Like that was such a huge, I felt like, watershed moment. And then the thing that I found really surreal, I can't remember if it actually came out this year, if it came out last year, but Cyberpunk Edge Runners was so well received that it felt like it like rekindled interest in Cyberpunk and like pushed people back towards Cyberpunk at a time when like Cyberpunk was kind of, the redemption arc was well on its way, but I think like, there was still a lot of negative feeling around that game. It felt like it was a big part of the story of people coming back around on Cyberpunk, which was wild to see. Like, so it feels like we're past something. Like, it feels like we've actually fully crossed past this idea that like video game adaptations are always going to be bad. And it's been so long of them always being bad, like all of them, that to get to this point where it's like, oh no, like, people are talking very seriously about Pedro Pascal as Joel, in The Last of Us. Like that really feels like a something new.
It's been nice. I mean, I haven't watched a whole bunch of them, I will admit. I'm not much of like I don't tend to watch like video game adaptations of stuff unless it's like a very, very special interest of mine. But it's been nice. Like I said, like my mum watched The Last of Us. Like, she is not a gamer. She is like, well, she's a Candy Crush gamer. She's a mom gamer, She's like she's one of those, and like she was super into The Last of Us. She loved that show. Like, I feel like you said, Robin, it really helped sort of like transcend from just being like an adaptation for people who enjoy the games to becoming something that, and I guess The Witcher kind of did this as well, even though that's more to do with the books, but it became more something that it was a thing for everyone, and everyone could watch it and enjoy it, and like it didn't, like you said, it didn't fully detach itself from being a game, but it wasn't like, this is for the gamers, this is for the real gamers. It was like, no, this is just like we're just adapting like a cool story, and it's been really nice to see, and I do hope we get more of it in the future, because I would love to see more stuff get adapted. I would like, especially beyond like anime as well, because I feel like a lot of the good video game adaptations were coming from like anime before, but now we're seeing like good live action TV shows. We're seeing like good, fun animated movies. So yeah, I'm very, very much looking forward to it. I don't ever want to. I wonder if they did like an Assassin's Creed movie now, would it like actually be good? That's what I want to see. I want to see like a good live action video game movie, because I feel like that's something we haven't seen much of yet. We've seen like the TV show side of it, but I can't think of like a good movie, like live action movie that we've had yet.
That's a good point, actually. It is kind of, the trend is kind of confined to TV for now, because I think they've been taking the films more seriously and trying to treat them as more of a broad thing, like particularly the Uncharted movie and like the Tomb Raider movie kind of spring to mind. That those were very much like kind of mainstream action movies, or that's how they were presented. But they were kind of limp and you know, they ran into the problem that you're often going to run into, which is that the games that you're basing this on were derivative of movies in the first place. So it's kind of circular at some point. But yeah, I don't know why TV seems to have cracked the formula so much better than film has, but it feels like only a matter of time, because, you know, you look at something like The Last of Us TV show, and whatever you think of it, like, it has such a cinematic approach just by its nature. I mean, you could have made a movie with that cast, with those production values, etc., and it would be, you know, and that would have been a kind of big mainstream film adaptation. So it feels like only a matter of time.
Yeah, I hope so. I feel like TV shows definitely lend themselves more to world building, which I think is something games rely super heavily on, right? They rely very much on that world building, which you can't always necessarily get from like an hour and a half to 3 hour movie. But I think it could. It's within the realm of possibility. We've seen Mario and Sonic do really well.
Technically, the Sonic movies are live action, aren't they? So
they are.
And they are paragons of cinematic quality.
And I love those movies. I know you're being.
I haven't seen them, so I can't make any.
Have you not? It's like you're being bitchy right now, but I love the Sonic movies. How did I forget they were live action? I think it's because it's so heavily integrated with like the CGI stuff, right? But I love those movies. Great movies.
Speaking of widening the gamer lens elsewhere, one of the things that I've noticed a lot of this year, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the year, Mollie, is the state of gamer aesthetics around desk setups and peripherals. That has really, really widened even more this year than in past years, of seeing not just like people on social media being invested in like the cottage core, like aesthetic desk setups, but like now that, you know, producers have caught on that people are going to buy those things, now we're seeing like a lot more legitimate options of like, it's not just black, red, or pink. So we're getting some purple peripherals and some like green peripherals and like pastels and like bright colors. It's not just all like black, red, green. There are like actually quite a lot of options for, you know, mechanical board keycaps, various game pads, all your different mice, like PC cases, just so many different colors and visuals that you can spec into at this point. It's really giving people a lot of options.
I love it.
I want more of that. Yeah, it's great.
I love it. I wrote about this like around this time last year, actually, because Razer released a bunch of their like peripherals in pink, which they've been doing the Quartz collection for like maybe like 3-4 years now or something like that, which is their pink peripherals, right? Because I remember before that, I had never really perceived anything outside of black or white. It was like your keyboards were black. Maybe they were white if you were like paying more money and were willing to clean it more often. But it was just always that, right? It was the black keyboards, the black mice, black monitors, black everything. Or like I said, maybe white as well. But it's been so nice, and I am so jealous of these like people on TikTok that have like all the pastel setups, or they have, like you said, like the cottagecore setups. And I think there's just been a wider accessibility of high quality peripherals, because I think that was before what was missing was like a lot of the creative, or maybe the sort of like slightly more like out there color schemes were relegated to like the £20 Amazon keyboards that like had horrible switches and would break after like 6 months. But I think there's been like a huge influx of like good quality, more inventive peripherals as well. And I really want to see more of it. I want to do like a big desk refresh sometime in 2024, I think. And I want it to be like aesthetic as fuck. And there's so many more ways to do that now. But, you know, if you still want to keep it very like minimalist and very simple, like that's still an option, right? And that's still very much a thing that is accessible. But no, I love that there's more ways to express yourself now, kind of with how you like have your setup, right? I feel like it's you know, it's nice to express your hobby in multiple different ways. And I think, you know, when someone goes, oh, I really love your keyboard, if I like turn my webcam on or something and they see my keyboard and they're like, I love your keyboard, I'm like, thank you. Like stuff like that. I don't know, it's nice to find new and fun ways to express your hobby.
Yeah. Mollie, the thing that I told you existed earlier this year that now you believe exists, I want to hear about this too.
Yeah. So
we talked about cozy games earlier in the year.
We did.
And I said,
you said, does cozy horror exist? And I said it doesn't. I said there is no way that such a thing could, that two genres could coincide, could live in harmony. That was probably about 6 months ago that we had that conversation. I officially concede that cozy horror exists, and I really want to see more of it. Like, I've really been enjoying these kind of cozy but slightly spooky or like supernatural or like into more like full-on horror. I've really been enjoying that sort of like the polar opposite, and it creates a really weirdly warm experience. Like, I think Dredge was one of the ones that we had spoken about as being a cozy horror game.
Cozy horror fishing.
Yeah, cozy horror fishing. And it's really fun. It is really fun. It is cozy and it is scary. And it works really well. And like, even something like Spirity, which I played recently, it's not horror, but it's kind of, it's got that like Studio Ghibli, like surreal, slightly like occasionally unsettling vibe to it. And I really like that with all the coziness that those films bring as well. And it's really fun. It's really fun. I was not expecting it to be fun, because it kind of takes like my favorite bits of horror, which is maybe being slightly unsettled or, you know, things being a little uncomfy. It takes that, but then it takes all the warmth and like maybe the fun things about a cozy game, like the fishing or like the relaxation parts of it. And I don't know how it works. I don't know how it works so well, but it really does. I love it.
Tech stuff. I'm gonna get like rapid fire here towards the end. AI and NFTs. Go.
Oh,
go on, Robin.
Robin, go, attack!
I'll do NFTs quickly first. They tried to make it a trend. We all knew it made no sense. It seems to be burning itself out now. I'm not getting anywhere near as many emails about like Gino D'Acampo's new NFT video game or whatever. So good. Get it out of here. We don't need them in 2024.
We don't, and don't come back.
You
Don't
just
come back.
confused so many Americans with Gino D'Acampo.
I'm too used to just like glossing over all of your references, and I'm just like, it's fine if I don't know what that is.
I encourage listeners to gloss over it just as smoothly.
I assume he's a boffin, like that must be true.
Oh right,
Yep.
yeah. That's one of the forbidden words for the UK team. AI is interesting. I think AI has always been a part of how we make games in terms of, when we talk about like procedural generation, that is a form of like generative, AI style technology. But we didn't call it AI before because the whole framing of this stuff as AI is basically a marketing strategy. But anyway, so on some level, so some developers are already experimenting with stuff like creating fully AI generated like backdrops for games and stuff like that, which obviously ties into all of the controversial stuff around AI art and AI text, which has a lot of problematic elements and a lot of stuff that I think people should be really wary of. But at the same time, you look at it and it's like, well, every game has speed tree, and what is speed tree if not an AI tree generating software? So like, there's definitely interesting possibilities there if it is managed in a, I think in a sensible and responsible way, that doesn't put artists out of, put tons of artists out of work, use people's
and
styles
doesn't steal from
without
them.
exactly, use people's styles without their permission. And also I think there's a lot of limitations that need to be recognized around stuff like what kind of dialogue it can generate and stuff like that. I think it sounds like some studio execs are like trying to act way ahead of where the technology actually is in terms of like, getting it to generate storylines, quest lines, stuff like that it's really not well equipped to do. So I think we definitely will still be talking about AI a load next year, and I think it will definitely be a part of. I think developers will definitely be looking at it from every angle, but I hope that we can. I hope we can move forward carefully on this one, and also I hope that we can make it so that not every single subreddit and Facebook group on the internet is flooded with AI art bullshit, because I'm so sick of it and you can't talk about anything anymore. There you go. That's my rapid fire on AI, which probably took about 6 minutes.
No, that was perfect. Okay, one more rapid fire. Sony is taking PC more seriously. Again, still, even more, and maybe next year, right?
Yes. Very cool. Very fun.
Yeah, like, Sony makes great games. It's great to see them port them to PC. Especially stuff that I didn't think would ever get ported to PC, like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which was so a kind of PlayStation launch game. I ended up feeling a bit funny about how much they were kind of charging for that and the kind of timing of it coming out, but it's still a really beautiful game if you want to like push your PC hardware and you just bought a shiny new graphics card and you really want to see what it's capable of. Like, that game looks great. Yeah, it's nice to feel like, Spider-Man 2 came out recently. It's nice to look at that and feel like if I wait, I will be able to play that on my PC and it will look better. Like, that's a great feeling that we haven't gotten to have before. But what happened with that Last of Us port? That was bullshit. That game came out in such a bad state that we had to give The Last of Us like a 48% or something. Like, that is not a good place for you to be, Sony. Let's not do that again. But in general, they've been doing good work porting their stuff to PC, and that's great to see. I hope to see them kind of close that gap more and more.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of stuff that we are wishing for next year, trends-wise. Trends to end, trends to start. Go ahead, Molly.
As I say, the Game Awards is literally right
today.
Upon us.
Yes.
It is today. It is tonight as of this episode. And we're expecting a lot of new games to be announced as well, right? I think they said that there would be like a higher volume of new announcements than usual. So maybe that'll give us...
see.
Yeah, we'll see. But maybe that will give us a good idea of where things are going to go in 2024 as well.
Yeah,
We'll see
that's
some
true.
of 2024's wildcards announced at that event.
I did say the release calendar looked kind of open, so maybe that's going to be less unclear here very shortly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Robin. As usual, you can find all the rest of the writing on all of these topics at pcgamer.com. Thanks, Robin, for coming and brainstorming a post with us. Well done. Thanks, guys. Bye.